Hello, and welcome to Getting Going on Azure with Datagriff. And today we're going to be creating a simple virtual network to house two virtual machines and prove the connectivity between them on that virtual network. So the first thing you need to do is go to portal.azure.com. Once you're in the portal, we're going to click the hamburger in the top left-hand corner of the screen. We're going to go to All Services, and then we're going to hover over Virtual Networks, and we're going to click Create. Then we're going to click Create again. And this takes us to the basic configuration pane for our virtual network. So we're going to create a new resource group to house our virtual network and virtual machines. Create new. And I'm going to call it My VNet RG, with RG standing for resource group. Click OK. Then we're going to create a unique virtual network name. And I'm just going to call this My VNet. And it's going to be EUN because I'm going to create it in North Europe. And then I'm just going to postfix this with Griff. Then for the region, like I said, I'm going to choose the one closest to me. And I'm going to go North Europe. Then I'm going to go to the IP addresses pane. And because this is just a simple setup, I'm just going to leave the defaults as they are. But you can see there's the IP address range. And then we've got the subnet. Then if we go to Review and Create, make sure it passes validation. The validation is passed, so we're happy to create this simple VNet. So we click Create. The virtual network is now deploying, and it shouldn't take too long. Great. The VNet is now created, so we'll go to that resource. So there's our virtual network now in the portal. And if we go to our resource group, and there you go, there's our virtual network and our resource group. So now what we're going to do, we're going to add two virtual machines and make sure that they sit on this VNet. And then we're going to make sure that they can talk to one another. What we're going to do, we're going to go back to All Services. We're going to click Virtual Machines. We're going to add Virtual Machine. Now on this basic page, we're going to choose the same resource group as our VNet. The virtual machine name, I'm just going to call this VM01. I'm going to leave it in North Europe. I'm going to leave the availability zones options as they are. I'm going to leave the image to be Windows Server 29 Data Center Gen 1. And then what we've got to do, we've got to give it a username and password. And I'm just going to give it admin Griff for the username. And then I'm going to put in password. Then I'm going to confirm that password. Make a note of these because we are going to need the username and password to remote onto the virtual machine when we test their connectivity. So we scroll down. I'm going to leave the public inbound ports as they are. And I'm going to leave it as RDP. And you can see we do get a warning because this is going to allow all IP addresses to access the VM. But we need this just to test what we're doing. So we're not going to change anything else. We're just going to check the networking. And for the virtual network, you can see it's on the VNet that we've already created. Subnet, I'm going to leave as the default. The public IP, just allow it to create a new one called VM01 IP. And again, the inbound port, just check in, is going to allow us to RDP onto this box. So that's all we need to do. So we click Review and Create. The validation has passed. And then we just click Create. So our first VM is now deploying. While that's deploying, we can go and create another one. So again, we'll click All Services. We'll click Virtual Machines. We'll click Add Virtual Machine. And we're going to do the same process, except we're going to create a VM2 instead. So we click Drop Down. And we're going to choose the same resource group, My VNet RG. The virtual machine is this time going to be called just VM02. Again, we're going to create it in North Europe. We're going to leave the availability options as they are. We're going to choose the same image, Windows Server 2019. The size we'll leave as the default. And again, we're going to need to give it a username and password. So I'm just going to use the same ones, admin Griff. Put in my password. Scroll down. Again, we're going to allow RDP port onto this box. Going to leave everything else as it is. The only thing we need to check now is the networking. So click Networking tab. and we're going to choose our VNet that we created earlier, so we know that the VM1 and VM2 are on the same virtual network. We're going to leave the subnet as it is. The public IP is going to be different this time. It's going to be VM02 IP, so each virtual machine does have a different public IP address. So that's it. We're going to click Review and Create. The validation has passed. You can see we still get that warning about RDP open to the internet, but we're just doing this as a test and proving that we can do it. We wouldn't do this on a production setting. So we're going to click Create for our VM02. And our second virtual machine now is deploying, and that's going to take a few moments to... Great. Our second virtual machine is now complete and deployed, so hopefully this first one is as well. So if we go to this resource, we can see our VM02 is there. It's on the virtual network that we created as well. So we'll go back to our VNet resource group and just confirm both virtual machines are there. Great, so we've got VM01, VM02, and you can see our virtual network at the top. So let's just check VM01 is also on the virtual network. So we'll click. There you go. So you can see it's also on the virtual network that we created. And now what we're going to do, we're going to RDP onto our first virtual machine and make sure that we can ping the second one that we created. So we're going to click Connect and then RDP. We're going to download the RDP file. We're going to click Connect. And we're going to click More Choices, use a different account, and make sure that we use the admin username and password that we chose earlier. And click OK. Say yes. So we remoted onto our first virtual machine for the first time. What we're going to do now is open up PowerShell by searching for PowerShell. There you go, Windows PowerShell. And we're going to right click, and we're going to say Run as Administrator. And then all we're going to do is type ping VM02 and make sure that our first virtual machine can connect to our second one. There you go. So we can see that our first virtual machine can ping our second virtual machine on the same virtual network. So that's succeeded, and we proved that our virtual machines are now on a virtual network. I'm going to close that down. I'm going to close down our remote desktop connection. Click OK. We're going to go back to our VNet resource group. And now that we've finished our demo, we want to make sure that we save costs and clean up our subscription. So we're just going to click Delete Resource Group, type the resource name in, my VNet RG, and click Delete. So that's going to clean up our demonstration, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of Getting Going on Azure with Datagryph, and I hope to see you next time.